everyone, I'm Abigail. This is Connor, and welcome to another Two Kids interview.
Today we are joined by New York Times best-selling author on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, Peter Burns.
Mr. Burns has written a lot of nonfiction and sports books, and recently came out with a middle grade novel having nothing to do with sports, The School of Thieves.
Thank you so much for being with us here today.
It is my huge pleasure. I've been watching your YouTube videos for a wee while now, and I am endlessly impressed with how you are as interviewers and everything you guys are doing is just amazing.
Thank you. When writing for kids' books, movies, and anything that's for kids, is the first thing that you need to do is decide in which way you want to get rid of the parents?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. So this is all quite new for me in terms of my writing, as you guys pointed out. I always wanted to be a children's author, and I had a few goes at it, and I kind of accidentally became a sports writer, which I've now done for like 20 years. But this is what I wanted to do, and that is a very, very good question, is getting rid of the parents. And I was actually doing a school tour yesterday, and someone asked me what's the appeal of setting a story in a boarding school, for example, and it's exactly that reason. It's to get rid of the parents, and that's kind of why um, a lot of characters, I suppose, in children's books are also orphans. Like my main character, Tom, in The School for Thieves, is an orphan, and it is, I suppose, it allows you to have a lot more freedom of what the characters can do in their world if you don't have the problem of telling their parents and their parents interfering and coming after them and trying to rescue them or whatever it might be. So yeah, I hadn't really given a huge amount of thought of it like that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a kind of crucial thing to get rid of the parents.
What made you make the switch from writing sports nonfiction to a middle grade novel?
Well, as I say, so I always wanted to be like ever since I was your age. That's kind of what I wanted to do and write was, and it wasn't actually even called that when I was your age. But middle grade is absolutely the kind of genre that I always wanted to write. And becoming a sports writer was really as I said earlier, it was accidental. So I went to university and studied English, and then when I graduated, there were kind of three jobs that I thought about doing that would keep me in that world of literature, and that was being a teacher, a journalist, or maybe becoming an editor in a publishing house. And I went for the latter option and got a job as an editor. And I played a lot of rugby at the time, and the people with the job, it was for a sports editor, and I just wanted to do anything that would get me into that world. So I said, "Yep, I'll do that." And I think they just presumed that because I played rugby and I liked books, I'd like sports books. But at that stage, I'd only ever read like two sports books ever. So I kind of became an accidental sports editor when I really wanted to be a children's editor. And then a friend of mine was writing a book, and it was a kind of history of Scottish rugby, and he was really struggling to finish it. So I said, "Look, I know quite a few of the current Scotland rugby players. I'll come on board and help you finish the book." And that was my first book. And I was a kind of accidental sports editor, and then I became an accidental sports writer, and I just kind of loved it. All the while still wanting to be a middle grade author, but I became a sports writer, and I've now written, I think it is 12 sports books over the last 15, 20 years. But it was not what I planned to do. I wanted to be a children's author, and I just finally managed to do it with The School for Thieves. Sorry, that's a long answer.
In your other books, the people are real. For this, how did you get to know your character, Tom Morgan?
So he kind of arrived in my head almost fully formed. It was very strange. Um, with a lot of the other characters, as I introduced them to the story, I didn't know them at all. And it was only through writing the book that I got to know them. And from that, started to think about what their family life was like, what their past was like, what their interests were. But with him, I just kind of always had him in my head as to how he would be, how he would react to situations. I think I'm not sure if all authors have this, but I certainly have it with him that a lot of the decisions that he makes are the ones that I hope I would make in those situations. So there's a lot of me in him, and I think that's why he is so fully formed. Although we have completely different backgrounds, and the world he lives in is not the world that I live in or grew up in. But I think in terms of his thinking and decision making, that's, as I say, the decisions that I hope I would make in similar situations.
The first Harry Potter book was titled Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but the name in the US was changed to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Can you tell us what you thought about the US name change for your book?
So yeah, exactly that. So it was interesting. So in the UK, it's called Shadow Thieves, and but when I was writing the book, I didn't really have a title for it. And when we submitted it to a number of publishers, it was just called Thieves School, and it was bought by a UK publisher, and they came up with the title Shadow Thieves, and then they sold it to a US publisher, and it was really interesting. I don't think the US publisher ever saw my original title, but it was very, very close to the one that they came up with, which was the School for Thieves. And to be honest, I didn't have a huge say in either title. I just kind of agreed that I know I went with their expertise, and it was interesting that the American publisher wanted to change it to the School for Thieves, but I was happy. I thought, they know the market better than I do, and it's proved it's obviously worked well. What did you guys? You tell me. What did you guys think about the title?
I like the title. It's pretty good.
Hmm.
I
And
like the US one better though, I think.
yeah, see, they obviously knew that you guys in America would like it better that way.
You already have written a second book in the series, Island of Scones. I know it comes out in June there. Is there a release date for us in the US for it? And what can you tell us about the sequel?
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if it will change the title for the US edition, and I don't yet have a date for it. But the US edition of Europe of the first book came out in August, so I'm kind of guessing it might be August next year. I mean, they could do it in June at the same time as our version. It doesn't really matter, but it's really up to them and their schedules. But the plot, so the first book, I kind of have it in my mind that the first book is a kind of obviously it's introduction to the characters in the world, but it's a kind of a murder mystery structure to the book. And then book two, when I was growing up, I absolutely loved Indiana Jones movies and the movie The Goonies. Have you guys seen that? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I kind of wanted to lean into that into the second book. So it's a kind of a treasure hunting adventure, book two. And then book three is, which I'm working on just now, is like a prison break adventure. But book two, so I don't want to do too many spoilers for people who have not read book one, but something happens at the end of book one, and as a result of that, a lot of the students who are in the school have to be sent off for summer camps away from the school. They can't stay there anymore because of something that's happened at the end of book one. And Tom and everyone in his boarding house gets sent to a Mediterranean island called the Island of Skulls, which is very, very hard to access. And they're going there to find a long lost treasure. Um, and there's lots of traps and adventures and some really, really bad guys all involved in this adventure. So that's the kind of plot of book two. It's very exciting. I think it's my favorite book I've ever written.
Is there anything you wish you did differently in book one to set up book two or book three better?
I don't think so. Because it took me a long time to write book one, and throughout that whole time, um, I was thinking about the future series, and also I was very lucky in that when I signed the book, it was a three-book contract, so I knew that there would be, and I could leave breadcrumbs of clues in book one, which didn't necessarily get paid off in book one, but would get paid off later on. So I don't think there's anything I would change in terms of the plot. I think for me as a writer, I don't think I'm ever finished. But eventually I have to stop writing because I could tinker with it forever. And I'll sometimes pick up book one and be like, oh, I wish I could, change that paragraph or improve that sentence. Um, but eventually you have to let it go. Uh, but in terms of the plot, I don't think so. I think I've managed to plan everything carefully enough that I don't want to change anything in it in that regard.
How do you make a thief a likable character?
A very, very good question. And it's something that I really struggle with actually in terms of it's a very fine line that I have to tread in these books because ultimately these are bad guys. Uh, but I thought it was lots of fun from the very initial concept I had that we would be telling this story from the point of view of criminal masterminds. And there was a lot of fun to be had with that. But you don't want the writer you don't want the reader to be disliking your main characters. So it's something I have to work on very carefully and about the decisions they do and the crimes that they are going to commit. And I think having that larger purpose about keeping balance to world affairs through the crimes that the Shadow League commit, although they enrich themselves and gain huge power from the jobs that they do, ultimately it is in the broader picture of things, is keeping a balance to the world. So that's kind of how I justify it to myself. But it's hard at times.
So will that be easier in the second book since it's a treasure hunt?
I think so. I think the second one is slightly easier, and then it starts to get a bit murky again by book three. And this is a thing that I really like about Tom as a main character because he's not born into that world. He doesn't have the same preconceptions that the other characters do. And the crimes that he committed as a child in London was purely for survival when he had no other choice. And ultimately, I think for him, there is going to be a reckoning in his future about the moral dilemma that he faces as a member of the Shadow League and whether he can continue or not, or how he might look to change the Shadow League if he can. But yeah, it's not something that comes up so much in book two, but it starts to rear its head again in book three. And hopefully, as if we get more books in the series, um, you'll see that coming out a bit more.
In the United States, we are having more books getting banned. Is there a problem where you are at all? And what do you think about book bans?
Yeah, it's been a story that I've followed very closely where you are. We haven't had book bans here, and it's a kind of extraordinary thing to look at it happening where you are and all the issues you've had around books being taken out of libraries. Um, and it's one of these things I actually think I wouldn't. I want to pick my words carefully here, but I kind of wonder if that would ever happen to my books because of the moral dilemma at the heart of the whole concept of having these books about criminals. And it's not, I don't think, again, it's a careful line I have to tread, but I'm not glorifying the crimes. Um, but you also don't want to make it completely po-faced and boring. So it's a balancing act between the fun of it and not over glorifying it and encouraging people to commit crimes. But yeah, the book banning thing is hugely worrying that it's happened, and you just have to hope that there will be a corrective very, very soon where the kind of madness of that is recognized and stopped. So yeah, that's my kind of 2 cents on it.
I feel like as long as the criminals aren't part of the LGBTQ plus community, I doubt your books will get banned.
No, no. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's all these political undercurrents of real life problems that people fought for so long for recognition of these characters in fiction at all, and then suddenly there's this feeling that there's an overcorrection and they should be pulled out again. I mean, it's wild. I mean, the greatest thing about literature is that it teaches you empathy because if you're reading a book, you have no choice but to be in someone else's head. And you don't have to agree with them or have the same feelings or anything like that, but it's understanding that this is what makes us human and makes us people. And there's this incredible kaleidoscope of the way to live your life. And, you know, it should be celebrated, not everyone delineated into these narrow margins of how you should and have to live your life, and you shouldn't know anything. It's not even about the fact that you have to live like that. It's about understanding that other people want to live that way, and you should be tolerant of that, not just dismissive and banning it.
What other middle grade book ideas do you have?
Oh, very good question. Very good question. Well, the first book I ever wrote, and it wasn't very good, but I loved the idea. And I think the problem was I wasn't yet a good enough writer to execute the idea. And I'll tell you what it is because I'll probably never write it. But I remember going to on a trip when I was about 14 to the British Museum in London. And as you're walking around the museum, they have stairwells that lead to different sections of exhibits. So you might have Morocco and you might have North America and you might have, India. And you go down to these exhibition areas. And I always had loved the idea of like a character finding out that her grandfather had a secret hallway in his house where you could go to lots of different worlds through different doors. And as soon as you went through, you went to this different world. And I wrote this book, and as I say, it wasn't very good, but I really liked the concept of it. And then, yeah, I've got loads. I mean, within the Shadow League world, there's lots of spin-offs you could do, but outside of that, I've always wanted to write, a kind of Father Christmas origin story, where he's a bit of a warrior living in the woods and using reindeer antlers as weapons and all this kind of stuff, and fighting evil spirits. And the joy of Christmas allows you is a kind of allegory for fighting these spirits. So maybe one day I'll do something like that.
It was just a couple of months ago that you found out that you were a New York Times best-selling author. What
Mhm.
was your reaction when you found out?
I was sitting in this office. It was about 11 o'clock at night here, and I screamed. I couldn't. I got this email from my publisher in New York, and I could not believe it. I mean, I've wanted to, as I said earlier, I wanted to be a writer since I was your age, and to have my first children's book come out, and not only come out here, which was the dream come true, it was coming out in America, a double dream come true, and then a New York Times bestseller. I mean, it's beyond my wildest dreams. It's what, it's like winning an Oscar if you're an actor. It's mind blowing. So it's probably the coolest thing that's happened so far by quite a long way.
Besides reading a lot, what advice do you have for young writers?
Oh, I don't want to be like, I mean, everyone's wants, I'm sure all your authors, and I've watched a lot of your videos, they say absolutely the best advice, be bold, be adventurous, be brave, don't be afraid of anything you're writing. Um, I'm trying to think of a more kind of like practical piece of advice. Like, I don't think I'm a very good first time writer, but I'm a very good rewriter. So just get your idea down on a page or type it out, and I do actually a lot of writing on my phone in the notes bit of my phone. It's just get the idea down, get the a bit of dialogue, get a bit of description down, and quite often I go back and I'll read my stuff and I go, I can't write. I'm awful. This is absolutely dreadful. But then I rework it and I rework it, and then I go, actually, no, that's reading quite well now. I'm really quite pleased with that. And then the other piece of advice, I think, for writing fiction, and this is a lesson I learned from writing nonfiction, because nonfiction is easy to write, really, because it's happened. So it's just a question of how much research you do and who do you speak to and who do you interview and all this kind of stuff. But the structure is essentially there because it happened in real life. So I found it really helpful to, in these books, write very structured plans to my books. And it starts off with bullet points of where I maybe see the book starting, not necessarily where I see it starting, but what is the big action moment or exciting moment in the book. And then from there, I work backwards or work out, and I do bullet points, and then I build my structure, and then I do a really detailed plan. And that just keeps me focused the entire time I'm writing. And, it stops you. Quite often, I found when I was writing previous efforts at fiction, I would go off on massive tangents and then not know how to get back to my main plot. But by having it well structured from the beginning as a plan, it allowed me never to get lost and then always come back and at least finish it, and then you can start working away on it again.
What author has had the most influence on you?
Um, so growing up, Uh, I mean, you're both obviously amazing readers that you read loads. So I always loved stories, but I was actually a very poor reader. I was slow. I found it hard work. I wasn't dyslexic, but I was just a poor reader. But I listened to lots and lots of audiobooks all the time. So I'd listen to them in the car, doing Lego, drawing, um, going to sleep all the time. I just listened to them. And so my favorites, and I obviously did do some reading, but it was a struggle. But I loved Enid Blyton and Jill Murphy, who wrote The Worst Witch. So I don't even know. I presume these books are you guys got these books, but and then I absolutely love The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and having read that and listened to the audiobook, I remember thinking, right, I want to do Lord of the Rings next, but I listened to the audiobook first, and that then meant when I read the books, I knew how to pronounce all the names and all the place names and the kind of rhythm of the speech and in the narrative, and that helped enormously. I then probably read that book every year for about 10 years, and I was obsessed with them. Uh, so they have almost nothing to do with the books I now write. The language is completely different. The whole themes are completely different. But that was the biggest influence that I wanted to be. I wanted to have a book like J.R.R. Tolkien had. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, it's not had a direct influence on my style of writing, but in terms of my love of reading and of literature, full stop. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is my number one.
Now it's time for a turbo time.
10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm terrified, but I'm ready.
Number one, what is your favorite phrase to use?
Oh, good. Favorite phrase. I'm constantly because I'm in Tom's head and quite a lot of scary stuff happens to him. I am constantly having to find ways to say that he's terrified. And my favorite one at the moment is his insides turn to liquid. That's my favorite.
Number two, what's one subject you love to learn more about?
Oh, even better. How to rob banks.
That's a subject?
Yeah, well, yeah. If you get into it, it is a subject.
Number three, what is your go-to snack?
Oh, my go-to snack. Now, do you get at Easter time in the US? Tell me, do you get Cadbury's mini eggs? They're small chocolate eggs, like in shell. Yeah, those. I am obsessed with those. Have a little bowl of them on my desk the whole time, which is very unhealthy, but that's my go-to snack.
Number four, what's your favorite book growing up?
Favorite book growing up, J.R.R. Tolkien's
Oh,
Lord of
yeah.
the Ring. Done.
Number five, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
Oh, great question. Great question. Maybe to Buffalo to see the snow. Do this interview in person. Let's do that. Yeah, for sure.
Number six, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
It would be teleportation. Definitely. I could go on holiday anywhere I wanted, anytime. That'd be great.
Number seven, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Favorite cartoon? Oh, great question. Uh, I loved Thundercats. That was probably my favorite. I absolutely love that. Do you guys know Thundercats? They have a reboot recently, maybe. I
I've
don't know.
seen one episode on Disney Plus.
It was super cool. I loved it so much.
Number eight, what's your favorite rainy day activity?
Or snowy.
Snowy rainy day activity. I'm afraid it is the cliche for an author. It is to read a book. I'm sorry. It's not more adventurous than that.
Number nine, if you could have any three dinner guests, who would they be?
Three dinner guests. Oh, very good. I would love to have for dinner Michael Jordan, Barack Obama, and my favorite rugby player of all time, a guy called Christian Cullen, who you won't know. He's a New Zealander, but I'm his biggest fan. So those three. So a real mix. Two sportsmen and a politician. There you
Number 10, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
go. Oh, that's really good. Oh, I don't the best piece of advice I've ever been given. Is it a bit of advice? Good things happen to good people, I was once told. And I think it's more of a mantra rather than a piece of advice, but it's something I very much stick to. If you do good things and you help people, you don't always ask for anything. You don't have to ask for anything back, but I think good things happen to you.
You were amazing. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
You were both amazing. I'm so impressed with everything you guys do. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I'm thrilled to have done this with you. I can't, it still blows my mind that kids like you have read my book in America. It's just it is the single coolest thing ever.